everyone, welcome back to my channel. I am so excited about today's video. This is actually a video that I have been wanting to film for a while, and I had been thinking about it but wasn't quite sure the direction that I wanted to take with it. And I am so excited to announce that we turned this into a birth story tag. Now this is a little bit different than your typical birth stories in that most of us that are participating in this tag were not YouTube creators when we actually were pregnant or gave birth to our children. So we never got a chance to film our birth or share our birth story. If that sounds like you and you would love to film this video as well, you will find the link to the playlist, like I said, in the description box below. And once you film your video, you can actually add your video to that playlist as well. The only thing that I ask is that you just give my channel a shout out. Sarah, aka Mommy, I created this tag and I'm super excited to kind of see it grow through YouTube. And it's just super exciting to me. So I would love, love, love to have you all join. But like I said, what we're going to do with this birth story video today is I'm actually going to compare and contrast my births. Were they all the same? Were they different? Is there something that stood out about one, etc.? And just share my stories with you all in one video answering 10 questions. So if you are new to my channel, hi, I'm Sarah. I am actually a mommy to 5. I have a 9-year-old, an 8-year-old, 5-year-old, 2-year-old, and a 1-year-old, 4 boys and 1 girl. So I've been a mama for almost a decade now, and I'm so sad that I did not have YouTube back in the day to kind of capture all these memories, but I'm totally enjoying having this outlet now and just kind of being creative and getting to kind of just, I don't know, do something that I enjoy doing. So with all of that being said, I am going to jump right into this tag, and like I said, if you want to check out the other mamas videos, click the link in the description box below. You will not be disappointed. There are so many great channels participating in this. So question number 1 is, how many births have you had? So I have 5 kids and I've had 5 births. Question number 2 is, did you have a vaginal or a cesarean delivery? So I was lucky with all 5 of mine, and I say lucky in the sense of I did not have to undergo a major surgery. I had vaginal deliveries with all 5 of them. C-sections were threatened a couple of times when the baby's heart rate started dropping, but I was able to deliver all of them vaginally. Number 3, epidural or natural? Okay, I need to preface this by saying that I'm the girl that when I sat in for birthing class with my first child, I did not even listen to how to have a natural birth. Did not listen to breathing techniques, did not listen to how you should have your spouse coach you. To me, it was just walk in, hands up, give me the epidural, I want the drugs. And that was my birth plan. And with my first, it went just like that. I was actually playing cards and they came in and told me I was crowning, so I didn't feel any pain. With my second, I felt pain until I was actually admitted, and then epidural. With my third, pain till I was admitted, epidural. Fourth, pain till I was admitted, epidural. And then, my epidural stopped working. And I literally thought I was going to die. They kept telling me to breathe, and I didn't know how to breathe. And it was terrible, and it was the worst pain I have ever felt in my entire life. It was, I can't even put words into it. I almost felt like I was outside of my body, but experiencing this awful pain that was never going to end. And when he came out, I was shocked. I was in shock. With all of my other kids with my epidural, when they come out, I'm like, oh my gosh, my baby. And I'm crying and I'm so excited. When Davis, my 4th, came out, I hate to say it, but I was in a state of shock. And they had to take him away for about 10 minutes to check him and do all those things. And it wasn't until they brought him back and I had a moment to calm down and get over what had just happened to me that I was able to bond with him. So with my 5th pregnancy, I went into the hospital, and when the anesthesia came in to give me my epidural, I let them know that it stopped working with my fourth, and I never wanted that to happen again. And they actually spent like an hour in my room making sure that my epidural worked, that it wasn't going to stop, because I was traumatized. So epidural or natural, I am totally hands up, give me the drugs. I've experienced natural childbirth once, and I never, ever, ever, ever want to do it again. And if you guys go all natural, like all power to you. I'm so proud of you. Like that pain is indescribable, but it's not for me. No. All right, number 4, hospital or home birth. I had all of my kids in the same hospital. I actually delivered 3 of my children in the same hospital room. It was kind of cool. But home birth, I love watching home birth videos on YouTube, and they look totally empowering and amazing. But like I said, I'm all about the epidural, so a home birth is not for me. Okay, number 5, did you have any complications? In a few of my births, I had some like issues during labor. They weren't major complications. Like all of my babies were born healthy. Thankfully, I never had any like hemorrhaging. I never had any major issues. With my first, I was 23, and my labor went pretty fast. I was actually induced with him because my placenta had aged early, so they induced me at 39 weeks just to ensure that he was getting everything that he needed. And so my whole labor was about 8 hours. And about the 6-hour mark, I started pushing, and I pushed for 2.5 hours. And after about 2 hours of pushing and nothing really happening, they did start talking C-section, because they said you have like a 3-hour window to push the baby out before they'll go ahead and do C-sections, just to ensure that everybody's safe. So he wouldn't come out. Apparently his face was turned to the side like this, and it was catching like right here. And so they had to give me like a 3rd-degree episiotomy and use the vacuum to get him out. So that was a little bit of a complication. I did have some, you know, recovery from that wasn't necessarily pleasant. And then with, let's see here, my 4th, so the labor where my epidural didn't work. Thankfully, this section of time that I'm going to talk about, the epidural was working, because I can't even imagine if it wasn't. But with him, I went into labor on my own. I was 38 weeks and like 3 days or something like that, and got into the hospital, you know, walked around for a bit, did triage, progressed, got admitted, and it was the middle of the night at this point. So I was going to try to rest a little bit after I got my epidural. And so I laid down, and the nurse came in and she was like, hey, I'm gonna have you sit up. I'm having trouble, you know, getting baby, because you know how the babies will move off the heart rate monitor. And she messed around for a few minutes and she couldn't find him. And I will say that I was feeling him kicking while this was happening, so I wasn't internally freaking out like I would have been if he wasn't kicking and I didn't know that he was alive. But she was trying to like find his heartbeat. She couldn't. She called in another person. They looked, they couldn't find his heartbeat, which is really scary. And then they called in a 3rd nurse, and she looked and she was like, you know what? I'm just gonna try it. And she put the little Doppler up here, and she was like, oh my gosh, he's turned breech. And at that moment, I immediately started crying, because like here I was already in labor. He had been head down for weeks. I was assuming I was gonna have a vaginal birth, and to me, a breech baby meant C-section. And they were like, don't freak out yet. There's actually a doctor here on call, and he's like a miracle worker, and he is really good at flipping babies. And if anybody can flip your baby, it's him. So this random doctor I've never met before comes in, and he has like the little handheld ultrasound, and he finds Davis, and he kind of just like holds the ultrasound and flipped him. And he went head down again. And then he said bye, and he left, and I never saw him again. I always say he was like a little angel. And then, so his labor continued to progress. My epidural started wearing off. It was terrible. And at that point, I will say that when the epidural wore off, I was like 9-ish centimeters, I think. And my contractions had actually slowed to where they were like 6 minutes apart. So my doctor and the nurse had decided they were going to give me a little bit of Pitocin before my epidural wore off to just get my contractions consistent, so when it came to pushing, I could push them out quickly and not have to wait like 6-minute intervals. But then my epidural wore off. So I was having Pitocin contractions on top of not knowing how to breathe, on top of he was sunny side up, and this part of his face was stuck on my pelvic bone. So it was like grinding and I couldn't get him out. And the nurse was like, this is, I mean, that's really painful. She was like, that grinding motion is really, really painful. And she was a godsend. She was like praying over me and everything. And then, you know, once he passes through that, he'll be right out. And once he passed through that, the ring of fire hit and he was right out. But it wasn't pleasant at all. And then with my fifth Grant, at one point, his heart rate did start dropping during labor. And they very seriously threatened C-section. But she was like, I'm going to check you. She was like, I think this is just, he's getting into the birth canal. If you're dilated, we're ready to push. She was like, if you're not, we're probably going to have a C-section because he's not tolerating this. And thankfully, I was crowning and he was ready to come out and he was born perfectly healthy. So to answer that question, no major complications, but a few things here and there that have happened. All right, number 6 is your funniest birth experience. And right now I'm gonna get a little TMI with you all. So with my third, Paxton, I had a room full of people. My nurse had asked me at the beginning of that labor if I was okay with her having a student. And I was like, yeah, sure, that's fine. I didn't really realize at the time that that meant that I was opening the doors to every student that this hospital may have. Anesthesiology had a student, the nurse had a student, the nurse that comes in to like clean your baby up had 5 students. So when it came time for me to push, there were probably 6 students along with the people that I had in the room, along with my doctor, nurse, etc. in the room. So there was a crowd. And she pulled my legs up in the stirrups and I was kind of sitting up and I was like, why do I smell poop? And she was like, oh honey, it's fine. Don't worry about it. It happens. And I looked down and she's like literally like wiping me like I'm an infant. And I could feel my body at that point. You know, when you're ready to push, it's like just a lot of pressure. I could feel that. And there was nothing I could do to control it. And it just kept flowing. Yeah. That was fun. And then with my 5th, I pooped again. It wasn't quite as bad as the 3rd, but I was using the mirror with my 5th and she pulled the mirror over and she was like, okay, push. And I'm like, you're gonna have to take care of that that's hanging out of my butt before I could push because I can't focus on anything else other than the fact that there is like a turd. So I've pooped during labor twice that I know of. With Davis, I was so out of it, I could have like pooped all over the table and not known it. But you know, it happens, it's natural, it is what it is, but it happened. All right, number 7, how many people were a part of your birth? So I've kind of varied with all of my births with this. With my first, my hospital allows you to have 5 people in the room. And so with my first, I had 5 people. I had my grandmother, my mother-in-law, my sister, my sister-in-law, and my husband. All of them were in the room. And then with my daughter, she was born 18 months after my son. And my husband and I kind of wanted to just like be a little bit more intimate with that birth. I think it was because it was the first time that we were going to have more than one child. And we kind of just wanted to have like that one-on-one time with her right after she was born. So the only person that was at that birth was my sister. She came and she took pictures and then she stepped out and let us kind of have some one-on-one time. And then I was back to having parties in my birth room after that with the rest of my kids. I'm extremely extroverted and I love to be around people. And to me, like, birth is fascinating. So I'm always like, if you want to watch, like, come watch, you know? So with my third, Paxton, I had 5 people there as well. And then all of the students. I will say I didn't really like having the students there. I didn't like it in the sense that after they took him to clean him off, they were like teaching them how to clean him. So it just took longer for me to get my baby back. So with the rest of my births, I just said no to students. But with my 4th, I had, I think, 4 or 5 people there, and my 5th. I like being surrounded by people. It's super fun, it's super exciting, and I don't know. It's just a great moment to share. Okay, number 8 is, were you full term or early? I never actually made it to 40 weeks pregnant with any of my pregnancies. So with my first, I was induced at 39 weeks and like 1 day. With my second, she came at 37 weeks and 6 days on her own. My third came at 38 weeks and 4 days. My fourth came at 38 weeks and 4 days. And then my sweet little fifth, after you have, I will say, after you have babies like kind of earlier, you just assume that all your babies are gonna come earlier. So Grant was actually due on January 4th. And our goal was to get this baby out before the new year because taxes and insurance deductible, like those may be selfish reasons, but I'm like, seriously, like our deductible is pretty high. So that was like paying for the epidural or not paying for the epidural. So our goal was for that baby to come out in December. And he was my fifth. So I just assumed he would like fall out, but he didn't. He didn't. He was perfectly content. And so we actually induced him at 39 weeks and like a day, I think 39 weeks and 2 days, something like that, just to get him out before the new year. And he was fine. I mean, it was like literally like 5 days gestation at that point, but we had him on December 29th and we were home before that new year hit. So our deductible was covered. All right. Number 9, the duration of your labors. So all of my labors really have been pretty consistent in the fact that they're longer labors. My labors are weird in the sense of when they start, like they're 3 to 5 minutes apart, but I labor for about 13 to 16 hours. The only 2 that were different from that were the 2 that were induced. So like I said, with my first, I labored for 6 hours and pushed for 2.5. And then with Grant, my induction was actually a longer process, but it was because my doctor kept getting called into emergency surgery, and so she wasn't really having them do much with me. So I kind of just hung out in the bed with like the lowest dose of Pitocin for a long time. So his labor, I went in at 7:30 a.m. and he was born like a little bit before 7 p.m. So it was a little bit longer than I expected it to be with him being induced. But with all of my other labors, the ones that I've gone into labor naturally, they usually last 13 to 16 hours. Hence why I get the epidural. I mean, who wants to endure that pain for that long? Not me. All right, and then the final question is your recovery time. And my recovery time with all of them has been different. With my first, like I said, I had a 3rd degree episiotomy. So that recovery was a little bit more difficult in the sense of I had to do like a sitz bath. I really had to like be cautious, but I was 23 and my body was a lot younger. And I felt like even though I had that major, issue down there, I bounced back pretty quickly. I would say that the only labor that I had an issue with recovery was my 5th. Something about getting past that 30-year-old mark. And then I also had 2 under 2 again. So I did 2 under 2 twice. My first 2 were 18 months apart, and then my last 2 were 21 months apart. So basically I felt like with my last, I had been pregnant and then I was nursing. And then I found out I was pregnant while I was still nursing my 4th. So then I was pregnant and then I had a baby. And I was induced, and it was just like, I needed the pain pills. I needed, like, if I did too much, I was bleeding a lot. Like, I just really needed to like take it easy, which is comical when you have a 5th child because there's no taking it easy. I will say that that was probably the hardest part recovery wise after your first child, is just the fact that you don't really get to recover. You don't really get to like sit down and just like relax and give your body a moment because you have other kids that you just have to take care of, and that's just the fact of the matter. So my 5th was my hardest recovery, but there were definitely bits and pieces after each birth that were rough. But that is all of the questions. Like I said, I hope you all enjoyed this video. I really enjoyed being able to share just little bits and pieces of my births and what was different about them, what was the same, and just kind of getting to share that part of my life with you all, since I wasn't on YouTube, when I actually experienced those things. So like I said, please be sure to click on the link in the description box below, and you'll get to see so many other great mamas answer these questions as well. I'm so excited to watch their videos, and like I said, if you want to participate in this tag, it is not too late. You can always add your video to that, and make sure you give me a shout out in your video, and just I would love to see this grow through YouTube. I'm so excited to watch everybody's videos and just hear bits and pieces of their birth story. If you liked this video, please be sure to give it a thumbs up because that does help my channel grow. And if you haven't already, please be sure to subscribe to my channel. Like I said, I'm a stay-at-home mama of 5. I produce a lot of lifestyle videos. I love to do day in the lives, cleaning videos, shopping hauls, all of that kind of mom life stuff. And I keep it very, very real around here. So some days I won't have makeup on, some days I will. Some days I'll be running around in pajamas. You just never really know what you're gonna get over here, but it's gonna be real. So thank you all for watching, and I'll see you on my next video.